try to go into this whole definitely complexity that was introduced a few weeks back during summer PD. And my hope is to just kind of share a possible resource you could use in the classroom. And do know that the resource is just one attempt in teaching the work you're already teaching, but with the idea of approaching this from a different angle. If you end up using it, fantastic. If you don't, that's okay. My goal is always try to find things out there that I feel could be conducive to both our teachers, but also our students. And these icons that I came across 2 years ago, I thought, oh, these are pretty cool for teaching literature or whatever unit you're teaching. And what's really cool is that a lot of this stuff that has to do with icons doesn't have to be just strictly English classes. It can also be icons you can use for if you're teaching history or even science and possibly math. So here's the objective. We'll first do a walkthrough of depth and complexity and just kind of do a quick demo lesson. Hopefully we'll then have time for people who are okay to share out what their instructional hour looks like. And for some sites, it might be a 60-minute instructional time. It might be 90. I'm not really sure, but I'm hoping that we can then eventually share what we do in our classroom so we have further insight of how to break down our time in the classroom. If we get to it, I feel we may not get to it, but if we do, it'd be really cool based on survey responses to have teachers talk about text, tools, strategies that they use in the classroom that they see has been effective, even in a small kind of way, to engage students, okay? All right, so this stuff was talked about a few weeks ago, depth and complexity. That little screenshot on the right is just a background to provide context about these icons. And really these icons are meant to provide a shared language among students to help them not only enter a text, but to hopefully go deeper into what we typically call analysis reading or maybe critical reading, where we're not just reading for basic information, but we're trying to do much more with the text that can help students unpack what's happening in the pages, but also try to draw connections to other disciplines, other current events. And these images or icons are the top, we're not the top, but they're the only ones that is out there. And then if there's time, I can show you like what I do in my class here. But these are the icons we'll talk about for today. And then for the breakout session, I did email a short story by Sandra Cisneros. We're really busy teachers, so I guess a quick show of hands or in the chat box, did anybody have a chance to read it? Or because if we did it, we can read it kind of quickly. It's about 2 pages. It's cool, Adam, thank you. Anybody else got a chance to read it? Thumbs up from Adam Jones, and then Advita as well. All right, cool. Because in order for this to kind of make sense, I thought, well, you know, what's a story that we all have read? And I'm like, well, that could be any story. So I kind of tried to get something that was simple enough and quick enough that we could kind of read through it fast in order for us to try to understand how this could work for students. So let me get out of the slideshow and let me go into the short story. I'm going to try to kind of zoom in here. Hopefully you guys can see that. If you happen to have this available on a separate tab on your laptops or wherever you're working right now, that'd be probably helpful to read along. But in short, this story is an excerpt from Cisneros' collection, Women Hollering Creek. And I chose this to help us, again, with some of the icons that I feel could be the most beneficial for students based on my experience. But really, the ultimate decision on what will work best for your students will be for you, because you know your students more than anyone else. And in this story, I can't remember her name, but basically a girl goes to school, it's her birthday, she loses her sweater, and then it's like your day turned bad. And I first thought, well, we can talk about John Cheever's Reunion, another really short story of about 1,000 words. But I thought, now let's kind of do Cisneros for, I guess, for the voice aspect of the story. Um, any brave soul on the call wouldn't mind sort of in a cool, elegant way, speed read this short story for us?
I'll do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
My voice sounds smoky.
It sounds perfect to me. Can you see the
Okay.
text though?
I can.
Awesome.
45 by Shecky Green, right? Okay. Never mind. All right. Are you ready?
I am now, yeah.
All right. Sorry, that was just for me. I'm only been talking to myself for a week, so it's all good. Here we go. What they don't understand about birthdays and what they never tell you is that when you're 11, you're also 10 and 9 and 8 and 7 and 6 and 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. And when you wake up on your 11th birthday, you expect to feel 11, but you don't. You open your eyes and everything's just like yesterday, only it's today. And you don't feel 11 at all. You feel like you're still 10, and you are, underneath the year that makes you 11. Like some days you might say something stupid, and that's the part of you that's still 10. Or maybe some days you might need to sit on your mama's lap because you're scared, and that's the part of you that's 5. And maybe one day when you're all grown up, maybe you will need to cry like if you're 3, and that's okay. That's what I tell mama when she's sad and needs to cry. Maybe she's feeling 3. Because the way you grow old is kind of like an onion, or like the rings inside a tree trunk, or like my little wooden dolls that fit one inside the other, each year inside the next one. That's how being 11 years old is. You don't feel 11, not right away. It takes a few days, weeks even, sometimes even months before you say 11 when they ask you. And you don't feel smart 11, not until you're almost 12. That's the way it is. Only today, I wish I didn't have only 11 years rattling inside me like pennies in a tin Band-Aid box. Today, I wish I was 102 instead of 11, because if I was 102, I'd have known what to say when Mrs. Price put the red sweater on my desk. I would have known how to tell her it wasn't mine instead of just sitting there with that look on my face and nothing coming out of my mouth. Whose is this? Mrs. Price says, and she holds the red sweater up in the air for all the class to see. Whose? It's been sitting in my coat room for a month. Not mine, sends everybody, not me. It has to belong to somebody, Mrs. Price keeps saying, but nobody can remember. It's an ugly sweater with red plastic buttons and a collar and sleeves all stretched out like you could use it for a jump rope. It's maybe 1,000 years old, and even if it belonged to me, I wouldn't say so. Maybe because I'm skinny, maybe because she doesn't like me, that stupid Sylvia Saldivar says, I think it belongs to Rachel. An ugly sweater like that, all raggedy and old, but Mrs. Price believes her. Mrs. Price takes the sweater and puts it right on my desk. But when I open my mouth, nothing comes out. That's not, I don't, you're not mine. I finally say in a little voice that was maybe me when I was 4. Of course it's yours, Mrs. Price says. I remember you wearing it once. Because she's older and the teacher, she's right and I'm not. Not mine, not mine, not mine. But Mrs. Price is already turning to page 32 and math problem number 4. I don't know why, but all of a sudden I'm feeling sick inside, like the part of me that's 3 wants to come out of my eyes, only I squeeze them shut tight and bite down on my teeth real hard and try to remember today I am 11. 11. Mama is making a cake for me tonight. And when Papa comes home, everybody will sing, happy birthday to you. But when the sick feeling goes away and I open my eyes, the red sweater is still sitting there like a big red mountain. I move the red sweater to the corner of my desk with my ruler. I move my pencil and books and eraser as far from it as possible. I even move my chair a little to the right. Not mine, not mine, not mine. In my head, I'm thinking, how long till lunchtime? How long till I can take the red sweater and throw it over the schoolyard fence, or leave it hanging on a parking meter, or bunch it up into a little ball and toss it in the alley? Except when math period ends, Mrs. Price says loud and in front of everybody, now Rachel, that's enough, because she sees I've shoved the red sweater to the tippy tip corner of my desk and it's hanging all over the edge like a waterfall, but I don't care. Rachel, Mrs. Price says. She says it like she's getting mad. You put that sweater on right now and no more nonsense. But it's not now, Mrs. Price says. This is when I wish I wasn't 11 because all the years inside of me, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 are pushing at the back of my eyes when I put one arm through one sleeve of the sweater that smells like cottage cheese, and then the other arm through the other, and stand there with my arms apart like if the sweater hurts me, and it does, all itchy and full of germs that aren't even mine. That's when everything I've been holding in since this morning, since when Mrs. Price put the sweater on my desk, finally lets go, and all of a sudden I'm crying in front of everybody. I wish I was invisible, but I'm not. I'm 11 and it's my birthday today, and I'm crying like I'm 3 in front of everybody. I put my head down on the desk and bury my face in my stupid clown sweater arms. My face all hot and spit coming out of my mouth because I can't stop the little animal noises from coming out of me until there aren't any more tears left in my eyes. And it's just my body shaking like when you have the hiccups, and my whole head hurts like when you drink milk too fast. But the worst part is right before the bell rings for lunch. That stupid Phyllis Lopez, who is even dumber than Sylvia Salvador, says she remembers the red sweater is hers. I take it off right away and give it to her. Only Mrs. Price pretends like everything's okay. Today I'm 11. There's a cake Mama's making for tonight, and when Papa comes home from work, we'll eat it. There'll be candles and presents, and everybody will sing happy birthday to you, Rachel, only it's too late. I'm 11 today. I'm 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, but I wish I was 102. I wish I was anything but 11 because I want today to be far away already, far away like a runaway balloon, like a tiny O in the sky, so tiny, tiny, you have to close your eyes to see it.
Matt, that was excellent.
Thank you, thank you.
Excellent. Everybody, a round of applause or touch that little icon that looks like this. Thank you, Ms. Adam Pettis.
Thank
Good
you all.
stuff, man. Thank you for the quick read through. So any questions about the story? We're good, so we can move on. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to
My connection is probably going to drop, but I'll come back on.
okay, no worries, sir. Thanks for the heads up.
And I wanted to introduce you to Miss Goldman. Margaret Goldman will be taking over some English classes at Free LA High School. She's on from UCI. Just wanted to introduce her as well.
Okay,
Thank
hey
you.
Margaret. Awesome. Thank you for that, sir. Hi, Margaret. Thanks and welcome to the call here. I'm going to put a link in the chat box, which can serve as our kind of like our handout for this lesson. You don't have it's to help us out, but if you want to just watch, that's fine too. You're welcome, Margaret. That's fine, but I thought it could be helpful to kind of work through this as a possible sample assignment that you could use for your students. Do know that this is something I created specifically for this walkthrough, but the beauty of your class design is you can create practically whatever handouts you want. So, oh, you know what? Let me click here. It's things I forget to click, folks. Give me a few seconds here. Okay. So what I want to do is go through some of the icons. And I'm hoping we can do the details, patterns, and unanswered questions. I picked these 3 out of a total of 10, thinking that these will probably be the ones that could produce some more dialogue between all of us teachers, but also the kind of dialogue that could probably spark those conversations with your students in the classroom. There are ways to introduce these icons to students, but for us, we're just kind of dive in here. You probably can't see this because it's not in presentation mode, shame on me. But these are the icons that I shared, and they're available in these large flashcards kind of style. And if I pull up the details here, the screenshot on screen is the same as this, which kind of shows you the many questions you can use as anchors to help create that conversation in the classroom. At the bottom of these cards, provide other cross-discipline approaches for how to use the same icon in mathematics, social studies, and science and language arts. So that's details. Patterns is the other icon we'll look at. And unanswered questions, okay? So for details, if this is a class, likely you probably would have done some kind of scaffolding to help explain what details are. These questions here are directly from depth and complexity, but of course you can kind of spur up your own questions that you feel can help students understand details. Question number 1, what details define one of the characters? 2, which details are more important than others, and what is your evidence of this? 3, what distinguishes this detail from other details? 4, what details can be explained further? There's more to that. I just put those there for now. Let me actually click here. And then for patterns, these are the questions for patterns that if you want to look at repetitive notions in a thing you're teaching, the story or poem, and you want to go into more deeper analysis, then again, we have these large like flashcards with the questions which are there on the slide, but also providing you other ideas for cross-disciplinary teaching of the same content. Questions such as, if you're teaching patterns, what is the order of the events? Which elements, events, or ideas are recurring? What predictions can be made based on the patterns seen? And how does one pattern compare to the other? Unanswered questions, I've used that to help students really prod into imagining and infer as well into what details were not given in a text, but that could provide inquiries into further learning. Here is the flashcard. In the back again, you have anchor questions, and at the bottom, other ways for this icon to be cross-taught in other disciplines. So some questions that could be given to students to have them talk about unanswered questions in a text or unit of study can be what has not been explored, proven, or understood about the topic. How is the information incomplete or lacking explanation? And what conclusions need further evidence? And describe the unknown details of stimuli for the event, okay? I'm gonna go to the very simple handout for today's call, which is right here, okay? And so we'll just, if we can work together, that'd be really helpful. Let's look at details. So the story is about this girl, Rachel, goes to school, it's her birthday, she turns 11, but she's also still feeling other ages like 10, 9, and so forth inside of her. Goes to school and writes an action. There's a sweater that's ugly, and she gets accused as the owner of the ugly sweater. Mrs. Price, the teacher, thinks it's hers. We see the conflict where Rachel, the narrator, is resisting the sweater, trying not to take ownership because it isn't hers. And then the teacher tells her just knock it off, wear that sweater. And then Rachel, because she believes that teachers have to be respected and do what you tell them to do, puts it on. And then we kind of feel like that decline or dip in emotions. And then eventually the closing action will be then at the end, we find out that it belonged to a different student who says, oh, that's my sweater. And then it ends with the narrator trying to teach us a lesson about aging, right? So there's 4 questions on the slide here. You guys can type in directly into this student response box. If you were students, you can speak up, or you can just kind of type in the chat box if you don't have access to this. But let's try to attempt to answer one of these 4 questions based on today's story. One is, what details define one of the characters? Which details are more important than others, and what is your evidence of this? What distinguishes this detail from other details? And what details can be explained further? Okay. Would anybody like to take a shot at this? Chat box it, directly type in, or speak up.
Yeah, Mario, I think in the story, the character's birthday is really important to her. Obviously, it's like it's on her mind, right? And it's that's kind of like the biggest thing that's happening, but it's also kind of affecting the way she's feeling because she knows it's an important day. So I think the character's birthday is a very important detail to the story.
Thank you, Adam. And that's perfectly well to have a student say that, right? You're asking a simple question: what details define one of the characters? Of course, it might help to probably then provide a slight scaffold to make sure the students know what the word define means. We don't want to assume. But if they know, oh, that means explained or define, great. So, and then you ask, what is the character's details? And then this one would be Rachel, the protagonist or the speaker. And then, like you said, one of the details, the definer, is that it's her birthday. And that's important for the story because it also serves as the arc for how the story moves forward. So yeah, the character's birthday is an important detail to the story. Absolutely. Anyone else?
I would say one detail is that she feels like she doesn't have a voice point.
Yeah. We see in the story the desire to be more bold, but then there's also of holding back, right? Probably one detail as well, because there's one example which says, well, you know, teachers, they're the teachers and you do what they say, so you really can't challenge them, right? Even though she probably would want to, but because she's only 11, it's like, no, you do what they say. So yeah, we do see these notions of her just repressing what she truly would like to do, but she feels that she cannot. In the chat box, teachers are arrogance. Yeah, I'll put that here for you, Joey. Thank you. And what is it about, what, if I can ask Joey or anybody else on the call, like what is it about the arrogance that the teacher is displaying to us?
Well, first, it's like, I mean, this kind of goes under that umbrella, right? Like she thinks she knows like the truth, right? She's assuming, she makes that assumption, and then she basically that sense of power, right? That follows with it. And, you know, I mean, it can be either way, right? However you want to umbrella it. But she assumes that she's correct, knows the truth, and imposes her will on a student, a child, basically.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Chat box.
On
Oh,
the
it
doc-
is. It's not the
Yeah.
only. Oh,
It's all right, Mario.
no, not all right. How the heck is he? Anyone? Okay, and then here. Ah, dumb me. Thank you, folks. Thanks for saying that. But you like people like, it's okay, Mario, just type for us. It looks pretty good. I don't mind at all. So sorry about that, because I saw your faces up here. I'm like, cool. Nobody's typing though. Okay, so that's details. A lot more we can do with that, but let's kind of try a different icon to see how this differs from the other icon. So patterns. Okay, these are some guiding questions. What is the order of the events? Which elements, events, or ideas are recurring? What predictions can be made based on the patterns seen? How does one pattern compare to the other? Would anyone want to take a stab at that? Or crack at it, I should say.
Yeah, I think maybe like a pattern that I noticed, just the way that she reacted to the teacher, being kind of like, all right, I'm not going to speak up. I'm not going to challenge her. I feel like maybe, and I can be making an assumption, but maybe she kind of tends to react that way with other adults, whether at home or her own family. So maybe that's something that kind of her, like just the way that she reacts or the way that she interacts with, you know, adults, maybe like she kind of feels a little insecure about that, not just with her teacher, but it could be potentially happening like at home too.
Anyways, I'm not spelling it right. Yeah, thank you, Adam. Authoritative, I can't spell that right now, apparently. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, I think that's a one pattern. It does kind of lean into a slight inference about, well, might the narrative be that way towards all adults? In unanswered questions, that could be probably an area of exploration where we don't know because we don't see the narrator interact with other adults, except that she says there's mom at home that's going to make cake. We really don't see her like we do with the teacher. But for that kind of observation probably would fit for this one. But it demonstrates that a lot of what your students might say could very well overlap a lot of icons, and that's perfectly fine. The trick is that these icons that you would use in the classroom are giving students the lens to which to really narrow their study on the text, so that they're looking specifically beyond the words and really trying to unpack the implications, the interpretations, the references and whatnot. But yeah, so yeah, thank you, Adam, for that. The order of events too, like the pattern, if this is a question we can answer, can also just be really the plot arc of the story. You know, that the order is that narrative begins by stating it's her birthday, she goes to school, is confronted about an ugly sweater, she denies it's hers, teacher forces her to wear it, narrator accepts, puts it on, feels sad about it and defeated, finds out another person's actually the owner of the sweater, and then goes home, has a different with a different mood than the way she was when the story begins. Any other patterns you guys might have seen in the story? What about the counting? You know, which it says when you're 11, you're also 10, 9, blah, 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 to 1, right? A student can say, well, that's a pattern because it happens more than once in the story. Good, because you want students to take notice of the details, right? If there are specific character actions that repeat, it helps students to know, okay, the characterization of this one person is the type that will react in this kind of way based on certain scenarios, right? But yeah, so patterns is a great way for students to just really look at what repeats. And also from that, predictions that can be made from those patterns we see in a story. Anyone else that want to chime in for patterns?
I was gonna say a pattern of not standing up for herself or not,
Okay.
yeah, I guess pattern of no response, even when she knows what they're saying is not right. So a pattern of silence.
I love that. I love that. Of course, if we're teaching students to cite evidence to back up their claims of what they're saying, you know, if you have an activity or this were to be a segue to another activity, you would probably ask them, cool, that's great observation. Tell me where in text informs your observation, you know, which is like a different thing altogether of analysis. But yeah, I agree. The pattern of silence is reoccurring in the story. Chat box here. Yeah, narrator mentions that adults act like kids a couple of times, and I agree in this story. Yeah, cool. And what's cool about the icon, you have the patterns, you have like those, like what are those 5 circles, and they're interconnected to show us how things repeat, but also that when things repeat, we can then make predictions. Last one is unanswered questions. Some possible guiding questions here are, what has not been explored, proven, or understood about the topic? How is the information incomplete or lacking information? What conclusions need further evidence? Describe the unknown details of stimuli for the event. Okay. Would anybody like to just try to make a leap here and tell us what you're thinking about?
I'll do that.
Yeah.
The Phyllis, is
Mhm.
that, so she doesn't claim it until the end.
Mhm.
Perfectly well aware that it's her sweater. So one of the questions I had is, how does our narrator's response to the sweater affect Phyllis owning up to it being hers? So if she has such a negative attitude towards the sweater, why would someone say, well, that's mine? But more importantly, did she get teased for having that sweater herself at some point? And that's why I stood in the closet for so long. And so maybe there's like this backstory about this sweater that made the narrator have such a negative attitude towards it, and then Phyllis as well. And then maybe she's, was she part of the teasing too?
Yeah, that's wonderful, because yeah, this sweater that seemingly appears to be this just a piece of clothing that smells like cottage cheese, it actually kind of provides history that we don't really get to learn in the story, and it provides us with a place of exploration, based on what you say, Matt. The fact that, well, how come Phyllis never said anything about the sweater? Oh, it's been hidden. Okay, and if it's been hidden, how come Phyllis never took ownership to that and was always in the closet? But also, like the teacher, like why would she believe Rachel when Rachel says that it's not hers? Like, what's in the teacher's mind to say, no, just like, stop it, Rachel, just wear the sweater? Like, why that reaction, right? Unanswered questions. But this is a wonderful way for students to create questions. And it might be the kind of task where maybe all they're doing is making questions about what is not directly stated or talked about in the text, but helps them to just go beyond the text. Anything
Matt,
else? Yeah.
I'm sorry, Matt, your comments kind of they make me want to create an assignment where students would have to write a story about the life of that sweater.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good idea.
That's really creative, man. Like, where has it been? At what point did it begin to smell like, quote, cottage cheese?
I mean, just to personify that sweater, and to give it a personality or feelings, given that it doesn't seem to be wanted by
Yeah.
its owner or its adopted owner for the day.
Yeah, Robert, I absolutely love that idea. And probably, like, if you were to do an icon like this, it depends on your class design, if your class meets 4 days a week, 5 days, or whatever, right? But if you were to create a unit where maybe it is one icon for just a week, and it's this one, and you use a story like this one in the class, where you probably spend some time to read the story, and you explore the icon on day number 2 of your unit, day number 3, maybe like on a Wednesday, you then begin to probably talk about the personification aspect of the sweater. And then they work on creating a fictionalized account of the sweater's life. And that could be like your formative assessment of how they not only interpret the story, but also how they provide a understanding to the fiction itself. Yeah, great idea. Yeah, Adam Perez says, yeah, he was thinking the same. An extension activity could be where students write short stories that respond to these questions. Yes, absolutely. Or you can take it further if there's a particular object that they want to write a story about at home that they know has been neglected, like that one pair of shoes we have in our closet that we haven't worn for years, or some kind of, like there's objects that have a story to them, and maybe they pick one from home, personify that, and write a story in that object's voice. Yeah, great ideas, great ideas. Okay, we have about 5 minutes-ish. Anything else about these icons? About details, patterns or unanswered questions?
Mario, so the questions here are basically like, you kind of reworded from the back. Did you reword them? Because I
No,
worded them and they
no,
have,
I just verbatim, but I did in the past throw in my own questions that I felt could help with like students' access to text. So for details, I might, like, I remember I did things like, okay, provide details about, because I use it for Enrique's journey. So I thought, well, let me explain details and how would I do that? And because you have the icon of a flower, the idea is that we're looking at particular aspects of a particular thing or object. So I think the activity was provide some details about Enrique. What do we know about him? You know, and then students would say, oh, well, you know, he's this age and he left his country and so forth, right? But what I wanted to do, and this is where I feel like I'm gonna have some time, but I think I did share the slideshow in our PD folder, is the way I went about to teach these kinds of icons. And by using Enrique's journey as like the main textbook to use these icons, I kind of try to go about by doing a combination of group work where, and I don't know about you all, but I let my students write in the text. I let them like underline and write annotations because I want them to take ownership of their learning. And so I had like after, I think it was like the exercise about details, and then asking them like, well, let's look at details about Enrique that gives us more info about him, right? And so I had them mark in the text like a D for details if they saw something that jumped out as important to know about the character. And this is where, by asking them to do that, they're approaching the activity from the respective levels of understanding. A kid might say, well, a detail I found is he was born on this date. Cool. But a different student might find a different detail that could be maybe more complex. The idea is that by you saying, let's find some details, they're approaching it from different angles, but still about the same book, but approached by the means of how they're able to talk about the text. And then I spent like about a week on this. And then I think the next one was, might've been language of the discipline. And I tried this icon and I thought, well, how do I teach this icon? I can't just say it. So what I did was I tried to have come up with words or phrases that are common in particular settings. So in this example, what kind of words or phrases come to mind when we think about a courtroom? So students said lawyers, attorneys, judges, plaintiffs, defendants, right? And so the idea was for them to understand that those words represent that area of law or the courtroom, in a way that in Enrique's journey, particular words or phrases were recurring that were not just words like immigrate or migration, but other words that help us to see the world of the book. Same thing with this one, the language of the discipline. Cool. What words or phrases come to mind when it comes to football game, right? Touchdown and, you know, yards or whatever. And then they begin to see that certain areas have their own terminologies. And the trick is, when students begin to see that, they become more masters of that particular subject or topic of study. Okay. All right, 3 more minutes, folks. I was hoping to go more, but if it's okay, I'm hoping that probably one of you could answer one of these questions. This is the reflective part of the gathering for today. And because I'm hoping that, you know, if you do want to use the icons, you try them out, but also the idea is that you're doing this and into something you already have that you've taught before that might be somewhat of a seamless way to integrate 1 or 2 or 3 of these icons in your class for that one book or whatever you're teaching, so that you're not really having to recreate from scratch. So these questions, hopefully somebody could take a crack at it. How might you be able to incorporate, which I think, you know, I know Robert talked to this already. How might you be able to incorporate depth and complexity in one of your classes? Which icon do you believe would engage your students the most? What teaching unit or story or poem might you use for one of the icons? How might you incorporate student group work with depth and complexity icons? And how could you use depth and complexity to teach about social justice or real world connections?
I have an example, Mario. I could touch upon a couple. So for a short story unit, we one of the stories is yellow wallpaper.
Yeah.
So I think I'd probably go with patterns
Mhm.
because there's a lot of repetition, but I think the icon that would produce the most engagement is probably unanswered questions.
I agree. And yellow wallpaper, absolutely, a lot of repetition. And again, the trick is we're teaching close reading, but it's masked as icons, but it's close reading. So we're helping students again closely examine the text, and then question the text, and then think about the text, and then think beyond the text. Awesome. We
Robert,
got one more
Yeah.
minute. Anybody else? Yeah, I'm sorry. I heard Joey and someone else.
that's a
I cut you off.
fantastic story, Robert. How does that go over? I'm just curious, real quick.
Well, I mean, I miss, having the engagement of being in class. So, unfortunately, the past year that I've been with, Youth Build, it's been kind of just preview and review, and then engage with the student or the few students that are keeping up with the work. So I'm excited because that's 11A coming up. So, I just think things are going to be much more lively and there's going to be much more engagement. So I'll let you know. I'll give you an update because I anticipate that that'll be one of the I don't want to say better stories, but it comes after Poe, and I think it kind of tops Poe. So I'll let you know.
So I guess detail, I'll say detail. I'm gonna use detail teaching an Octavia Butler novel, but I'm also gonna pair it with Matt's PowerPoint and worksheet on characterization. Because it's just like, it's perfect for that. And the book I'm gonna be
Absolutely.
teaching is either, I'm not sure yet, I'm either gonna be teaching Dawn or Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. So if anyone's ever read either of those books, like I'd love to maybe have a quick chat with you.
Joey, I'd love to hear how that goes over because I need to incorporate some Octavia Butler into
Nice.
that short story class.
Yeah, short stories. If you can text me or something, I'll put my number that text me. Actually.
Thank you.
I was gonna
Awesome.
say,
Mhm.
I appreciate how you did it in the slideshow format. I see myself using them in class and then maybe assigning small groups of students to work on certain slides, like this group does details, this one does patterns, and then, discuss it at the end or let them present. I definitely will use it too.
Absolutely. And again, if it's something that works for you, be creative. And I apologize when we get to the other topics. So if it's okay with everyone, it'd be pretty cool to, I know a lot of classes begin for you all like pretty soon. For us, we started mental toughness. So we're just starting in class and I'm in class right now. But it'd be great to still provide support to teachers for any one of us who want to talk about our breakdown of one of our classes in terms of how you begin class and how that segues into the next activity and how that segues into another activity. So people have an idea. And then it'd be great to talk about texts and tools and things we do in the class that we feel garners engagement from students. And what I'll do is, we'll do another gathering. And the survey said once a month. So I'll look at the calendar and I'll choose a month for September. And then we'll follow up with these other objectives. Okay. In case you want to start looking at the slideshow now, here it is in the chat box, which I think I went through. I didn't go through. There you go. But I will make it available in email sometime, hopefully today, and along with the sample handout for you to do whatever you want to it. And yeah, you guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on the call. Peace, be restful, or be safe and rest. And I guess I'll catch you guys in about 12 minutes on the YCSC call.
Awesome. Thank you, Mario. Appreciate it.
All right, take care all. Bye.
Take care, everybody.
Robert, hey Mario, Robert, you got a minute? Maybe Mario could switch me to host if you gotta go. I understand.
No, I'm cool. I'm just gonna be here like,
Yeah, I got a minute, Joey.
yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I've taught for Octavia Butler. I've taught a couple things like Positive Obsession was good, I believe. I have her short story collection, Blood Children and Other Stories, is fantastic.
Okay.
One thing that really went over well because it came in as a like right before the APTs was Book of Martha.